Welcome to Buzz and Bark. My name is Patricia. And please subscribe, like, share, comment on Buzz and Bark. The other places to view these videos if you don't want to subscribe to YouTube is my WordPress site, which is Metaphysics for Everyday Living, and you probably already subscribed, maybe already. And then I'm going to be putting these videos on my Substack, which is Talk to Animals. Now, Talk to Animals is interesting because it was one of those, I wouldn't say impulsive, but I had this cat come into my mind space. The cat is not in the living. It's a Maine Coon Cat named Harry. He's just crazy, like he's funny. And he's not a sweet, gentle giant, like you see the Maine Coon Cats, and he'll say, "Oh, gentle giant." And so I thought when he first came to me, he was going to be really sweet, but he's not. And he's hilarious. And then there's Sparkles, the border collie, who's also in spirit. In fact, all these animals are in spirit. Secretariat, the racehorse, and Chewy, a German Shorthair Pointer. So they're all on Talk to Animals, and I just asked them questions that humans would ask animals questions, about the dog realm and the cat realm and the horse realm and what they're thinking and what they're feeling and what they think of humans. It's pretty entertaining, and it's also sometimes more serious. Like sometimes I get deeply esoteric and spiritual. So anyways, it's called Talk to Animals. I think the link is on my profile on this YouTube channel, and it's also on Metaphysics. I'm trying to link everything together. So today I am returning to Reiki because we are, according to Stefan Burns, if you know who he is, he's a geophysicist, and he does the cosmos, and he tells us what's happening with the solar flares and the plasma and all the things that are happening in deep space and closer to us. And there's some really interesting things going on right now, and it's making our electrical systems go completely insane. So if you've been having, fatigue or restlessness or trouble sleeping or headaches, or you're feeling really good, like you're feeling really just energetic and vital, a lot of that could be caused by these solar flares. Now, if you're a solar person, such as a Leo, or somebody that's more yang, then this energy will more than likely boost your energy. And if you have too much energy, it can be overwhelming. And if you're more yin and you're more lunar, then this energy feels really uncomfortable, because if you're introverted, it's a very strong outward energy. And also it creates things on the earth like volcanic eruptions and earthquakes, and sometimes electrical grids can go out. And so there's all these different things. You might want to check him out. His name is Stefan Burns. He's like super popular, so you probably already know who he is. So I have some Fibonacci's. I'm going to go through the whole set. I will do some of the forks together and some of them separately. Although you always have to do the 1-1 with every fork. So I have that one in the background. And then I have a therapeutic singing bowl, and then I'm going to do some Reiki, and I have some stones with me. So this one is for grounding. This is rainbow jasper. I actually found this one on a beach. If I had to buy this thing, if it was polished, I had to buy it. Probably be, $50 or something. You can see it's really gorgeous. So I've been meaning to find somebody maybe to polish it at some point, but it works really well as a raw stone, so maybe not. And this is larimar. It comes from the Dominican Republic, and it's very soothing it's mostly for the throat, shoulder area, throat chakra. But I've also been able to use it on the third eye and also the crown, and it's very calming of the mind, helps you to be more mindful. And then I have some sardonyx, or however you say that, and it is more for the sacral chakra. It's more for, orange for me is very energetic. So it doesn't represent the sun, but it represents kind of more of a fiery energy. I feel like, this, I think it might have it feels like it has carnelian in it, but I don't think it does. It just looks kind of like a carnelian. So yeah, so I'm going to do these tuning forks. I'm going to do the singing bowl, and then I'm going to use these stones, and I don't really know. I think what this is for balance, because when we humans, when we're in balance, when we're feeling grounded, when we're feeling in presence and awareness, or the other word that I like to use and other people like to use is mindful. When we can be in that state of mind, what we'll find is animals will gravitate toward us, birds will gravitate, insects, even mosquitoes and things you don't want. But we become more of a light, we become more inviting, more welcoming in our energy field. Because what happens to our energy field when we are frantic, or we're running around, or we got to-do list, or we've got a lot of thoughts going on in our head, like how I'm going to get this done, and we're problem solving, because humans are good problem solvers, right? But we can spend a lot of time in our heads bouncing back and forth, like how am I going to solve this problem, or not being able to make a decision, or all these things that we do in our brain, right, in our mind space. And what happens is when we get like that, animals don't really want to be near us. I mean, they may do it out of loyalty, they may do it because they're our companion animals, but they don't really want to be around us, because for them it's like something spinning around their head, because they just want to be in the moment. They want peace. So all creatures want peace, even us. But humans have the hardest time having peace because we are in the past, like we're rehashing old stories of the past, or we see something and it reminds us of something, so then we get triggered, or we're hoping for the future, right? Like we're either worrying about the future, or we're hoping for the future, but we're grasping on to the future, or we have expectations of how we want things to work out. And unfortunately, with things like the law of attraction and some of these New Age practices, not to say anything bad about New Age, but some of them actually are very distracting, and they don't keep us in the moment. So the whole Buddhist mindset, or even mindfulness, is to be in the moment. But a lot of these practices out there, especially the manifestation and things like that, they're going into the future, right? They're not being in the moment but they're trying to bring the future into the moment, right? They're saying, this is what I want in the future, instead of being grateful and in the moment that they have that's right in front of you, because you're not going to ever get this moment again. It's gone, right? And it's wasted, because within this moment you can plant seeds of love or peace or compassion or abundance. So you can do that and then present it for the whole world, like present it for everyone, not just yourself, but for everyone. And when you can be in that state of awareness, you're bringing calm and peace to your pets. And and if you can bring calmness to yourself and your pets, then you're going to have less inflammation in your body, and they're going to have less inflammation in their body. And then we can live, if not longer, at least the time that we're here can be more in vitality. And vitality is really important, and it's something that I've learned over, since 2022. I got bitten by ticks, and, one way to lose your vitality is to get bitten by, it could be mosquitoes or ticks or spiders or whatever it is. There's all these infections that you can get. And it doesn't sound like much, right? You think, well, I'll just get an antibiotic and I'll be better. But for some people, it doesn't work that way. And so there is a sapping of vitality. Now, for other people, it could have been the Epstein-Barr virus, could have been herpes, could have been any number of bacteria and viruses that are out there. So Reiki is, I wouldn't say a cure, but it helps us to unblock the energy centers in our body. So I learned Usui Reiki, but obviously I'm not doing Usui Reiki in a video like this, because there's certain hand positions, there's symbols, there's a whole way that you do the session, and you can't really do that in a video, because this video is very short, and I'm not going, I'm not doing a singular person. I'm beaming Reiki with an intention out to all of you. But the intention today is to unblock those chakras. And there's more than 7 chakras, but the 7 chakras are the ones that we know the most, and it starts with the root and it ends with the crown. But there's also a soul star, and then beneath our feet there's, I think it's called the earth star. And so there's a lot of chakras. Then there could be chakras in the hands, chakras in the feet. And then in animals, they have different chakras that we don't have. And so I'm intending that all the chakras be unblocked and activated and at the right energy level, because you can have too much energy in a chakra, or you could have too little energy in a chakra, and you don't want to have it out of balance. You want to balance the chakras, which means you don't have, like, you can actually have too much joy, believe it or not. And then when you have too much joy, you're just hyperactive, right? And then your brain is like, like you can't focus. And so that would be like what they would call ADHD or something like that, where I'm not a medical provider, I'm not a medical expert. But that energy, that, where you just can't like slow down and you're talking super fast, your hands are all over the place. And the other thing I found out yesterday, I have EDS, and they said that one of the traits of people with EDS is they talk a lot with their hands, and I do tend to do that. But then it's also part of a lot of the Latina cultures. You find people talk a lot with their hands. And actually a lot of cultures talk a lot with their hands, so it's not always just EDS, but it's one of the traits. And so if my chakras are out of balance, like if I have too much energy in my chakras, then I could just be like this, or I might be running around, and the thing is even though you feel like you have more energy, you're actually depleting your energy, and so you're going to be like doubly exhausted by the end of the day, and then the next day you might not want to get out of bed because you're out of balance. So basically you want to be something along the lines of what we call mellow, right? You don't want to be like laying on the couch where you can't get up and do something and be unmotivated, but at the same time you don't want to be so energetic that you're like a whirlwind, racing around trying to get things done, trying to go all speedy. And now we have to slow down because the world is sped up. And there's this idea that if the world's sped up, then we need to catch up with it. So we're like running breathlessly, like we're just out of breath and we're trying to keep up. But that's actually very depleting, and it's just going to take years off your life, right? Because you're running your battery down. And so the chakras for me are like batteries. And you want to conserve your energy, right? You want to go slow, and some ways to slow down are to do like a sound bath to get energy healing. It doesn't have to be Reiki, although Reiki, I have to say, is really powerful. It doesn't seem like it. It's not that hard to learn. And so a lot of the times, because it isn't that hard to learn, it seems like we could lose the value in it. We could take it for granted, but Reiki is actually extremely powerful, and I've seen it so many times when I've worked with animals, even remotely. Some of the results have just been astounding. Now, I don't get the same good results when I do Reiki on myself. I get some results, but I don't get what, if I'm sending the Reiki to someone else or somewhere else, people have said that, wow, I had like these amazing experiences, or I was really, I was worried about something maybe, and then they stopped worrying about it. Or, it just kind of calms, it's like perfect for me because I, tend to be really high strung. And so Reiki actually can just level the field. And so the other thing Reiki works on is the meridians. And the meridians comes from Chinese medicine, right? It comes from, you notice them in acupuncture, acupressure, reflexology. A lot of these, they're working on the meridians, and also sound healing works on meridians. And Reiki works on meridians, but we don't know the specific meridians. We won't say, oh, we're working on the kidney meridian. That's more Chinese medicine, or Asian medicine, you should say, because a lot of the different Asian cultures also have acupuncture of one kind or another, or they have some kind of medicine that is very similar to the ancient Chinese medicine. So, and then in India, you've got prana, and you've got the pranic healing, which is also like a chi, right? It's like the energy. And so all these different Asian cultures talk about these energy centers, or they may not talk about the energy centers, but they talk about the energy in the body. And a lot of the times that energy comes from your kidney. So your kidneys in like Chinese medicine, and then Qigong and all these other practices, the kidney is the life source. And if your kidneys are weak, then you probably won't live very long, right? So you want to build that up. You want to have strength, and you don't want to do things that deplete the kidney. or deplete the kidney chi. And so you might want to look into that. So what Reiki does is it opens the energy centers. It brings in the universal life force. So the universal life force, you can call it unconditional love, you could call it Christ consciousness, you could call it Buddha consciousness, you can call it whatever you want. But basically it is a very powerful life force energy that it gives us vitality, but it also helps us to balance our chakras. So when we're in balance, we're healthy. When we're out of balance, we're unhealthy. And each chakra correlates with physical parts of the body and different conditions, as well as emotional states, spiritual states, and mental states. So I'm not going to get into that, but you can go look it up. You can go look up basic Reiki. There's so many websites. I don't know anyone in particular, but you can go look up articles on Reiki if you don't already know about it. And the other one I'm using is tuning forks. Well, tuning forks, people will probably tell you they're ancient. I don't know that they're ancient. A lot of the tuning fork sets that we have now came about like in the 1970s or maybe in the last century, but they didn't come back. I mean, it's not like ancient Egypt had, solfeggio tuning forks or Fibonacci. Fibonacci's more recent. Solfeggio's more recent. The planetary forks, I believe, was the 1970s. Might be earlier than that, but it was definitely a lot of these sound healing tools that we use actually came within the 1900s, right? And then maybe even into the century that we're in now. So if anybody tells you that, these tuning forks and the singing bowls and all the rest of these things are ancient, they're actually not. So just a little brief thing about the crystal bowls. The crystal bowls come out of high tech. They come out of the materials, that they use to make computers. And they found that they could make these bowls, and then they use them for sound healing. Now they are very powerful, but they're not ancient, right? So be very careful like what you allow in. So if you're on a website and somebody's telling you, these things are ancient and this is an ancient practice and whatnot, be careful because it's not always true. Now I didn't know about this, but the singing bowls are actually not from Tibet. They're from India, but you will find Tibetan Buddhist monks using different kinds of singing bowls and bells and the tinkchas and these different things that we use in sound healing, but they're not necessarily using it in sound healing. They're using it as part of their ceremonies and their meditation practice and their different traditions. So definitely go and get the information that's legit. And it's hard to find, especially in the age of AI. There's so many sound bites out there. And if somebody is a sound healer, I've been trained in sound healing, but I wasn't given the right information, right? I wasn't told where these instruments come from. Native American flute is not ancient. The Native American flute came about when the Europeans, I don't know if it was the missionaries, I think it was probably the missionaries. Well, when the Europeans first came to the Americas, they brought these recorders. Now the recorders were part of the Baroque era. So you're looking at 1600s, right? And the recorder became the Native American flute. Like that. So if you look at I don't have mine with me, it is like a recorder. And so the Native Americans took that recorder and they made it their own. And before that, what they had were whistles. So they had bone whistles. And I don't think they had anything in the form of flutes. Now, there are some ancient flutes around the world, but I don't think the Native American flute specifically is ancient. So you can go and look up these different instruments that we use in metaphysical practices of this era, and you'll find out that most of them are probably from, some the 1600s or which I guess can seem ancient, but they don't go all the way back to, like ancient Egypt and, the earliest of cultures. Not saying they didn't have flutes and they didn't have instruments, they did, but they're not the ones that we're using now. So Fibonacci is, again, it's a more recent thing. And the tuning forks, the Fibonacci idea, that's actually been around a long time. I know it was around during the Renaissance, which is the 1500s. But the tuning forks is more recent. And basically they're ratios. And the ratios, so you have like a 1, 1, and then you add 1 and 1, so you get 2, and then you get 2 and 1, and you get 3, and then you add 3 and 2, and you get 5, and so on. And mine go all the way up to 34, but you can go all the way up to 144. So that would be like 12 forks, and I have 8 forks. So basically it just doubles. Or it's not even doubling. It just adds the 2 numbers. And so it becomes really mathematical, but basically it is, the Fibonacci sequence is in all things. So they'll show examples of a seashell or a leaf, or but everything has Fibonacci in it. So when I use a Fibonacci forks, what that does is it puts us back in our natural state. And it helps us to, in the way that I'm using it, it helps us to bond with nature. And so it helps you to bond with your pets, because we all have the sequence in us. And also I found out that the sequence is a spiral. And so you can find spirals throughout nature. I mean, you can go look for them, you'll find them. The snail shell, the seashell. If you look at like a fern, you know how it curls. But there's spirals in like even us. And I don't really know like exactly how that works. However, let's get started. I think I've spoken enough here, and I hope that some of this information helps you get grounded. The third element I have here, so I've got sound, I've got Reiki, which is the universal life force, and then I've got stones. And again, I remember showing these already, but rainbow jasper, it has all the colors that you can imagine. It's too bad I can't like shine a light through it. It's not a crystal, it's a solid. And it does have some quartz in it though. And basically I use this for all the chakras. I do this for all chakra clearing, and then it grounds us. And I've actually had some instances where I'm doing Reiki and it's just so powerful that I have to grab stones of like this size and put it in my hands and hold it down, or I have to rub it on my feet or put it next to my feet, but I have to ground myself, because sometimes you can just go way off. Also with sound healing you can. And then the orange, I'm just using this for the sacral chakra, but it can also be, we can just use it universally for all the chakras. And then this one is, I'm using for the throat, the crown, and the third eye, even though it's really just for the throat. But sometimes I don't have 7 stones with me, and so I just try to work it. This one actually can be used for the crown because there's the color white, and white represents the crown. Black is just the void, and then we've got different shades of blue on here. So yeah, you can definitely put the third eye. This one has some red in it, so it can also be used for the root. It doesn't have, well, it does have a little bit of yellow, so we can use it for the solar plexus. And this one can be used, again, for everything. So I'm going to start with the singing bowl, then I'm going to do the tuning forks, and then whatever energy still needs to go, I'll just focus it on the Reiki and the stones at the end, and then I might end again with the singing bowl. I like to start with this and end with this. And this is 1,000 to those who are number people. This is 100 hertz to 1,000 hertz. So the 1,000 one is the higher tone. And then the 100 is this. And so it's everything in between those, which is good because that pretty much covers, different parts of the body. It takes us from the earth realm all the way into the angelic realm. So it's pretty good. And when I was told about this bowl, I was told that you're only supposed to do it really quiet. And I'm like, no, I like a lot of robust sound. And I understood, the sound healer was saying that you're supposed to invite us into the sound, so you do like a little bit of sound. And if I were doing this on an animal specifically, because I'm doing this universally, but if I was doing this on an animal, I would do it very soft because they have such a good sense of sound. So if you are listening to this on a speaker, then you might want to turn it down if your animal's in the room with you. at least when I'm striking the bowl, and then you can turn it up again if you want, because they hear really well. And they also pick up the vibration really well. So with animals, you have to be much more subtle. With humans, because we're like, we got so much going on, our skin's thicker, having a robust sound is how I want to go. But let's take some deep breaths first. Okay, just let it out with a sigh. And then we'll count to 4, hold for 4, let out for 4, hold for 4. And we'll do it 4 times. And then you can just let the excess air out. Okay, so let me do the bowl. I had to go turn the fan off. And you can take some deep breaths with this as well. I'm bringing in tiger energy. I'm removing any excess energy out of your chakras. Okay, now I'm bringing balance. Reiki balance every one chakra. Who's watching this? Just receive the healing. Thank you. Bringing in the Reiki light. Think of it as a shower going through the top of your head, top of your pets' heads, and all the way, like washing through you. Any excess energy or things you don't want anymore. Unwanted energies. Reiki shower. Okay, now picture yourself in a bright white light, and also your pet in a bright white light. Okay. This is for grounding and anchoring the universal life force. May you all be peaceful. May you all be happy. May you all be well. May you all be filled with loving kindness and be free from all suffering. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, so this concludes this Reiki session. May the Reiki continue to flow where it's needed for highest and best, and I release all beings coming here and assisting with the healing and all of you as you receive the healing, and may this be sealed and protected within you. Okay, I did have a message come up during this session, and so it's a very brief message, and it's that the tiger came up. So the tiger, you could say power animal, totem animal, spirit animal, came up and said to pay attention to this is the standard tiger, not the white tiger, but the orange tiger, the ones that's orange, white, and black, to go look up those colors and to wear a mixture of those colors for the next 24 to 48 hours if you possibly can, or at least one of those colors. Orange will bring more strength, more vitality, more joy. White will bring more clarity. And the black will bring protection, guardianship, and also grounding as well. Or if you're in one of those situations where you're in a void and one part of your life has ended and the other part hasn't began yet, so you're just sort of in that middle section, then black is a really good color to focus on. And that could even mean working with black stones, such as the merlinite has black in it, the shungite, obsidian, tourmaline, black tourmaline, hematite is kind of, well, it's more gray, but the obsidian is a really good one if you can handle it. And obsidian is a very powerful stone. So if you don't like a lot of energy coming at you, then you might want to work more with the black tourmaline, or the other one that comes up to mind, but it's also a very powerful stone, is the pneumite. And the pneumite is really for being in that void. It's really helpful for being in the dark night of the soul and doing some spiritual questing, inner search or inner research, and find out what's going on in your subconscious. So those are some suggestions. Other than that, remember to like, share, comment, and you can also, again, watch these videos on Talk to Animals on Substack, or Metaphysics for Everyday Living. My website will also have these videos as well, although they did get uploaded on YouTube first, and then eventually I get it. And the other place is Blue Sky. So ever so often there is a buzz and bark animals on Blue Sky. And I put mostly birds and nature pictures on there because I notice that's what people like to look at. But I also post videos. And sometimes they're my videos, and sometimes they're other people's videos that I think are relevant to animal well-being and also our well-being. So have a wonderful week with you and your pet bonding. Bye for now. See you next week.